There's a house in a quiet Boston suburb. Fresh snow covers the ground, the kind of peaceful, fluffy blanket that makes everything look a little too perfect. But underneath that snow, frozen, broken, and dying, is a decorated Boston cop. And his girlfriend, Karen Reed, is about to become the centerpiece of one of the most twisted, high-profile murder trials in recent memory. What happened that night? Did Karen accidentally run him over after a night of drinking and drama? Or, brace yourself, did someone else inside that house do something darker? And is there now a whole cover-up orchestrated by law enforcement to pin it on her? This is the story of the Karen Reed trial, a messy collision of true crime, small-town politics, alleged police corruption, and the question that refuses to go away. Who really killed Officer John O'Keefe? Let's start at the beginning, or at least the version of it we've been allowed to see. It's January 28, 2022. Karen Reed is a finance professor with a serious New England edge, dating John O'Keefe, a well-respected Boston police officer. The two had been together for a little over 2 years. It's not a fairy tale romance. Friends and witnesses have said their relationship had its ups and downs. And if you believe Karen, the Boston PD wasn't exactly thrilled she was dating one of their own. That night, they're out drinking at a local Canton bar, the Waterfall Bar and Grill. A low-key night turns into a bit of a blur as the drinks start flowing. Karen's driving her black Lexus SUV, and sometime after midnight, John decides he wants to swing by a colleague's house, Officer Brian Albert's, where there's allegedly a little after-party going on. So Karen drives John to Brian Albert's house, or at least she thinks she does. According to Karen, she drops John off at the front of the house around 12:30 a.m., watches him walk toward the door, and drives away. She never sees him go inside, and she never sees him again, at least not alive. Fast forward to the next morning. It's 6 a.m. Karen's panicking. John never came home. She's been calling and texting all night, but nothing. So she rounds up 2 friends, Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, and they all drive over to Brian Albert's house to see what the hell is going on. And what do they find? John O'Keefe, face down in the snow, unresponsive, with injuries that don't quite make sense. Cuts, bruises, signs of trauma. He's rushed to the hospital, but it's too late. He's declared dead. And just like that, what started as a typical Friday night out turns into a full-blown homicide investigation. It doesn't take long for the focus to land on Karen Reed. Authorities say she struck John with her SUV and left him there, either by accident, negligence, or something darker. The theory? Maybe she backed into him while turning around in the driveway. Maybe she didn't realize she hit him. Or maybe she knew and drove off anyway. Karen's charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of a deadly accident. The prosecution paints a picture. Karen's drunk, emotional, they've been arguing, and in a fog of booze and anger, she backs her Lexus into her boyfriend and leaves him to die in a snowstorm. Harsh, but neat. Simple. Except, it's not that simple. And here's where the case goes. Full conspiracy theory meets Lifetime movie meets local police procedural with a broken moral compass. Right out of the gate, there are problems. First, Karen's injuries. She's got scratches on her arm. She's crying. She's panicked. Is it guilt or something else? Second, John's body. The injuries don't line up neatly with being hit by a car. No broken legs, no classic vehicle impact injuries. Just bruises to the face and arms, and a suspicious eye wound that one medical examiner said looked more like a blunt force trauma than a car strike. Third, and this is where things get real shady, Karen's friend Jennifer McCabe did a little late-night Googling. At 2:27 a.m., hours before John's body was found, she searches, "How long to die in cold?" Jennifer? Why are you looking that up before you've even found the guy? Now Jennifer says Karen told her to search that, but Karen denies it. So either Karen's lying or Jennifer is doing a little forensic spring cleaning. And finally, there's the party house, Brian Albert's place. Multiple people were inside that home when John supposedly arrived, and not a single one of them says they saw or heard anything. John O'Keefe, a huge guy, 6'2", 220 pounds, dies in the front yard and nobody notices? No one inside saw him collapse? No one heard a thud, or dogs barking, or anything? Either everyone in that house had the world's deepest blackout sleep, or something is being very carefully swept under the rug. Karen's legal team is like, nope, this is a setup. Their theory? John never made it inside because he was never supposed to. According to them, John was at the party. He went inside, something went down, and he was beaten to death by someone inside that house. Then he was dumped outside to make it look like an accident. And Karen? She's the scapegoat, the fall girl. And the defense goes in hard. They accuse the Massachusetts State Police of covering for their own. They question the handling of evidence, the lack of video surveillance, the missing doorbell camera footage, and the conflicting witness timelines. They point the finger at the people in that house, Brian Albert and his family, and suggest that this is a good old-fashioned protect the boys in blue scheme. They even get their hands on Trooper Michael Proctor's text messages, the lead investigator on the case, and it's bad. The guy's texting disgusting, sexist crap about Karen Reed, calling her a whack job and bragging that he'll nail her. Real professional, huh? And yet this is the guy building the case against her. Fast forward to April 29th, 2024, the start of Karen Reed's murder trial. This thing had been building for over 2 years, and by the time opening statements rolled around, the case had ballooned into a twisted, tabloid-level spectacle. True crime junkies were eating it up, Reddit detectives were spinning out their own timelines, and the courtroom was standing room only. And it wasn't just the public who was interested. Every local and national news outlet wanted a piece of this drama. You had Dateline people hovering like vultures, TikTok sleuths doing daily updates. People were picking sides, Team Karen or Team Law Enforcement, no middle ground, no nuance, just pure courtroom warfare. So what did the prosecution bring to the table? They doubled down on their original theory. Karen Reed got drunk, got mad, and backed her SUV into her boyfriend, killing him, then left him there in the snow to die like last week's garbage. Their star witness? Science. Sort of. They brought in crash reconstructionists who claimed damage on Karen's taillight matched the injuries on O'Keefe's body. They showed the Google searches, they highlighted her alcohol consumption, and of course they leaned heavily on those supposed statements from Karen, like when she allegedly blurted out, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," while panicking at the scene. But Karen's defense team? Oh, they ate that up. Because let's be honest, anyone in a state of shock might say something like that. It doesn't mean guilt. It could mean fear, confusion, or even horror at what she was seeing. This is where the trial flipped into something completely different. Karen's defense team didn't just defend her. They came to burn it all down. They argued that the prosecution's case was weak, biased, and conveniently ignored anything that pointed away from Karen. And then, they began planting little seeds of chaos. The party timeline? Shaky at best. Witnesses contradicted each other. Nobody could give a clear answer about when John arrived, or if he even made it inside. Brian Albert's house? Zero forensic evidence was collected. No photos, no luminol, no effort to even check if something happened inside. The dog? Yeah, Brian Albert had a big old German shepherd named Chloe. Not exactly the quiet, docile type. You're telling us a 220-pound man collapsed and bled outside the house and the dog didn't bark? Come on, John's injuries? Consistent with blunt force trauma, not with a car accident. Multiple experts, said he looked like he was in a fight, not a fender bender. And then there was the Google search. Remember Jennifer McCabe's little 2:27 a.m. curiosity session? How long to die in cold? The prosecution tried to explain it away as just weird timing, but let's be real, that's shady. Either she knew something before they even found the body, or someone was cleaning up their digital footprints a little too late. The defense even dug up digital forensics showing Jennifer deleted and reinstalled her Facebook app around the same time. You can't make this stuff up. Now let's talk about Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on the case. You'd think the guy running point on a homicide investigation would be, professional. Think again. During the trial, the defense unearthed a gold mine of Proctor's text messages. And when I say gold mine, I mean steaming pile of sexist, disgusting garbage. He called Karen AF *ing whack job, mocked her mental health, made comments about her body, and even texted that she was going to jail if it's the last thing I do. And this isn't just locker room trash talk. This is the guy investigating her. Even worse, he admitted under oath that he never even searched the Albert residence, never took evidence from the home, never did forensic testing in the yard. Nothing. You'd think someone might be interested in checking out the location where a cop was supposedly killed, but nope. Proctor had tunnel vision, and all roads led straight to Karen Reed. This was the turning point of the trial, because at this point, it didn't matter if you thought Karen was guilty or not. The investigation itself was starting to look like a total joke. So after all that chaos, what does the jury decide? Well, they don't. After weeks of testimony, cross-examinations, and legal fireworks, the jury couldn't agree. Deadlocked. On July 1st, 2024, the judge declared a mistrial. Boom! The whole thing hit a legal brick wall. And just like that, Karen Reed walked out of that courtroom, still charged, still under a cloud of suspicion, but not convicted. Not yet. And while you think the mistrial would end things temporarily, oh no, it just cranked the circus up another level. First up, the Karen Reed case becomes a full-blown media obsession. Podcasts, YouTube channels, news outlets, everybody's diving in. People start showing up at court like it's a sporting event. Team Karen fans are holding signs. People are live streaming from the parking lot. It's bananas. But the real bombshell comes when Trooper Proctor gets fired. Yep. After all the unprofessional texts, the shady investigation, and the absolute circus he helped create, the Massachusetts State Police finally said, okay, yeah, maybe this guy shouldn't be in charge of anything. They terminated him in March 2025, just weeks before the retrial is set to begin. And let's be clear, Proctor's firing matters. It shows that even the state can't ignore how toxic this investigation was. It's a huge win for Karen's defense because now they get to walk into round 2 of this legal brawl saying, told you so. As of right now, Karen Reed is gearing up for retrial in April 2025. The charges haven't changed, the accusations haven't gone away. But now the landscape is totally different. The lead investigator is fired and disgraced. Public opinion is fractured. The defense has new momentum. And the state, well, they're stuck trying to build a case on a foundation full of cracks. So here's the million-dollar question. Can the prosecution actually convince a second jury to convict Karen Reed? Or is this whole case going to collapse under the weight of its own corruption? Because if even half of what the defense alleges is true, if there really was a cover-up, if John O'Keefe was assaulted inside that house, if Karen was framed, then we're not just talking about a wrongful conviction. We're talking about a full-scale conspiracy, buried under a snowstorm, hidden behind a badge. All right, let's take a closer look at the house. The one where Karen allegedly dropped off John. The one where no one saw anything. The one that just so happens to belong to Brian Albert, a fellow Boston police officer. Inside that house on January 29, 2022, were several people, many of them with either law enforcement backgrounds or personal ties to people who wear the badge. Here's who we know was there. Brian Albert, Boston police officer, owner of the home, Brian's wife, present that night, Brian's brother, Colin Albert, young, possibly intoxicated, potentially aggressive. There are rumors this guy had an issue with John, Brian's sister-in-law and niece also inside. Multiple unidentified guests, because apparently when cops party, they don't keep a guest list. And of course, Chloe the German Shepherd, the loudest silent witness in Massachusetts history. Now remember, these people have every reason to say as little as possible. Because if John did enter that house, and if something went down inside, they're not just witnesses. They're potential suspects. So, magically, no one saw anything. No one heard a crash. No one noticed a 6'2" man outside their front door dying in a snowbank. And even stranger, none of them were thoroughly interviewed. That's not an exaggeration. Brian Albert and his entire household were barely questioned. No full statements, no cross-examinations, no polygraphs, nothing. It's like the whole party house was just off limits. Now ask yourself, if this exact situation happened in anyone else's house, what are the odds the cops would just shrug and say, well, guess he died out front, moving on? Yeah, 0. Let's talk about the autopsy. John O'Keefe was found face down in the snow with injuries to his forehead, his eye, his arm, and the back of his head. Now, the state says those injuries came from Karen's SUV, but Karen's defense brought in their own experts. And hoo boy, they had a very different take. Here's what they pointed out: blunt force trauma. One of John's eyes had extensive damage that looked more like a punch or a blow with an object than a car impact. No classic vehicle injuries, no broken legs, no pelvic damage, no spinal trauma. If he was hit by a car at even 5 to 10 miles per hour and thrown, something should have broken. Forearm defense wounds. These look like the kind of injuries you'd get if you were trying to shield yourself from a hit. Head laceration. The gash on the back of his head could have come from the ground or from being slammed into something. And again, let's not forget, none of these were definitive, but they raise serious questions. And in a trial where the burden is on the prosecution to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, every one of those questions is a little crack in the state's case. Now this is where it gets messy, in the best possible way. Because once this case hit the internet, the amateur detectives went feral. TikTok was swamped with theories. Reddit was lit up with charts, timelines, and grainy screenshots of Google Earth. People were deep diving harder than the FBI. And depending on which thread you found yourself in, this case was a police-led cover-up involving half the Canton PD, a family vendetta gone wrong, a drunken fight that turned fatal, or an elaborate hit gone sideways. One of the most popular Reddit theories? That John caught someone in the Albert house doing something illegal or immoral, and it got him killed. There were whispers about domestic abuse, possible corruption, and even inappropriate relationships involving minors. Nothing proven, but the internet did not hold back. Other online sleuths started dissecting Brian Albert's driveway like it was the Zapruder film. People measured tire marks, snow piles, camera angles, anything they could to figure out how the body got where it was. One theory? That John's body was placed there later after he'd already been hurt or killed, and the doorbell camera footage mysteriously missing. Brian Albert's house had a ring cam, but during the investigation it just vanished. No footage, no backup, nothing recovered. What are the odds? Now look, media coverage of this case was not equal opportunity. In the early days, most major outlets parroted the official line. Karen Reed hit him with her car. End of story. You'd see the headlines like, girlfriend of Boston cop charged in fatal crash, tragic accident, or intentional act, and finance professor faces murder charges in boyfriend's death. But once the trial started unraveling, and especially once Proctor's text messages hit the airwaves, things got a lot more balanced. Outlets like Court TV, Boston 25, and Law and Crime started digging deeper. And then, the docuseries hit. A Body in the Snow, the trial of Karen Reed aired in March 2025 and laid it all out. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the unanswered. It didn't pick a side. It just dumped the evidence and let people form their own opinions. But one thing became clear. This wasn't just a story about a woman accused of murder. This was a story about a justice system that looks suspiciously like a boys' club protecting its own. So here we are, March 2025. Karen Reed is free on bail, living in a legal limbo, preparing to face a second jury. Her supporters are louder than ever. The internet is buzzing again, and her lawyers are sharpening their knives. The prosecution? Well, they're trying to save face. They know their lead investigator just got fired. They know the public is watching, and they know their evidence better be bulletproof this time around. Meanwhile, the O'Keefe family, who believe Karen is responsible, are grieving, frustrated, and still fighting for justice. The truth might still be buried somewhere in that snow. But here's what we know for sure. This case is no longer just about Karen Reed. It's about power, corruption, and what happens when people with badges protect each other instead of the truth. It's about how justice gets warped when it's handed out by people with more loyalty to each other than to the facts. And it's about whether we, the public, the press, the people watching from the sidelines, will let that slide. So why does this case hit so damn hard? Why are people across the country, hell, around the world, obsessing over a case that, on paper, could have been a tragic accident? Because it's not just about what happened that night in the snow. It's about what happens when the people we trust to investigate a death might actually be involved in covering it up. It's about power, and who gets to wield it unchecked. It's about corruption, not just in whispers and rumors, but in real actions, texts, decisions, missing evidence. And it's about Karen Reed, a woman standing alone against a machine that's been programmed to destroy her. The prosecution says she's a killer. The defense says she's a scapegoat. And the rest of us? We're stuck in the middle of a true crime nightmare where nothing adds up, and nobody seems to care that it doesn't. This case isn't just a murder mystery, it's a mirror. And what it reflects about our justice system isn't pretty. Okay, let's be fair. Let's walk through what it would mean if Karen Reed really is guilty. Let's say she did hit John. Maybe it was dark, maybe she was drunk, maybe she didn't realize what happened until it was too late. Maybe she panicked, maybe she lied. Maybe all of this wasn't some big conspiracy, just a tragic, human, stupid mistake that spiraled into a courtroom circus. If that's true, she's not the first person to make a fatal mistake under the influence. But what separates this from other cases is what came after. Because even if Karen is guilty, the investigation was still a joke. The lead cop was still fired. The evidence was still tampered with or ignored. The party people were still given the coziest soft pass in history. So even if Karen did do it, the state still fumbled the bag hard enough to make people question whether justice is even possible anymore. Now let's flip it. What if Karen Reed isn't guilty? What if she really did drop John off at that house and drive away? What if something went wrong inside that house? A fight, an argument, a moment of rage, and those people inside covered it up? What if the cops protecting their own meant letting a woman go down for a murder she didn't commit? Because if Karen's innocent, this is one of the biggest miscarriages of justice in recent American history. A full-blown frame job. A coordinated manipulation of evidence, media, and procedure to save face, keep secrets, and bury the truth along with John O'Keefe. And worse, it means people in power knew and didn't care. They didn't fix it. They didn't stop it. They built a case on lies and expected the public to eat it up like it was gospel. If Karen's innocent, that should terrify every single person watching this video. Because if it can happen to her, it can happen to any of us. Let's be real. Public trust in law enforcement is circling the drain, and this case is the poster child for why. You've got investigators mocking the suspect while the case is still active, evidence ignored, lost, or never collected, witnesses who were never interrogated, a dog that doesn't bark, a house that doesn't get searched, a woman on trial for murder while the people inside the house where it may have happened sip coffee and lawyer up in silence. It's the kind of thing that makes people question everything. And the state? Instead of fixing it, they doubled down. They stood by their investigators. They dismissed the media circus as noise. They treated public outrage like an inconvenience. But it's not noise, it's the sound of people waking up. Whether Karen Read walks free or ends up convicted, this case is already bigger than her. Because no matter how the retrial shakes out, we've already seen how the sausage is made, and it's rotten. The Karen Read case cracked open a door that a lot of people didn't want opened. And behind it, backroom deals, selective justice, investigators behaving like frat boys, systems built to protect the powerful, not the truth. The people in that house have never had to testify under oath. They've never been cross-examined. The system protected them before it protected the man who died in their front yard. And that should haunt us all. The retrial begins April 1st, 2025. No joke. Karen Read will once again face a jury. And once again, the system will try to prove she's guilty. But this time, the world is watching. Her lawyers are going to tear through every weakness in the state's case. The Proctor text messages are already public. The theory that this was a hit and run is wearing thinner every day. And the cover-up narrative? It's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's a plausible scenario with receipts. If Karen's convicted, expect outrage. If she's acquitted, expect a spotlight the Boston PD hasn't seen since the days of Whitey Bulger. Either way, this isn't over. Because the question remains, who killed John O'Keefe? And why are we all still pretending like we don't know who might have been inside that house? This case isn't just a true crime story, it's a warning. A reminder that the justice system doesn't always care about justice. That truth can be buried just as easily as a body. And that when power protects itself, regular people get sacrificed. Karen Read might be guilty, she might be innocent, but no one watching this can honestly say the case was handled fairly. And if we let this slide, if we shrug and move on, then we're telling the system it can get away with anything, even murder. Cut to black.